5-Year Mission, the podcast, episode 46.
This episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast, is brought to you by Fansets, your home for all things pop culture pin related. Head over to fansets.com and see all that they have to offer. And also stay tuned at the end of the episode for a very special offer from us here at 5-Year Mission.
Are you going to introduce this?
I am. Let me get a drink first.
All right, hit it now. Welcome.
Yeah, right. Try it again.
Welcome.
Keep going.
I got to go deeper. I can't go any deeper.
No, not deeper.
Say the rest of the words.
The rest of the words.
I just thought.
By now you figured out that this is a 5-Year Mission podcast.
Welcome to 5-Year Mission, the podcast, the only podcast hosted by a band called 5-Year Mission. I am one of your hosts, Andy Fark, and yet again, this is like a weird miracle of miracles. We have all 5 band members here today.
What?
Got Noah Butler.
Me.
Got Mike Rittenhouse.
Me.
Got Chris Spurgeon.
Me.
And we got Patrick O'Connor.
Here.
And your name is?
I already said my name.
Did you?
I think so. People know by now. It's
What-
fine.
What if they forgot already?
Andy Fark here, present.
Andy.
Andy. Oh, I don't think that's not the first time Pee Wee Herman is going to come up in this podcast either. So you watch
Ooh.
out.
Interesting.
Thanks.
Just you watch out because I got some things going on here.
So what are we talking about, Randy?
What's that Zoom participant that keeps getting his audio cut off?
What?
What are you doing, Andy?
Oh man, there's my feelings.
Hurts my ears. Anyway, tonight we got a little thing going on that Noah came up with, a little podcast idea here. So I'm not even going to explain it. Noah, why don't you explain
I will.
what we're doing?
I came up with a podcast idea. Can you believe it? It's like the first time ever. I like talking about music because we're musicians and we all love music and listen to music. So anytime we can talk about music, I like to do that. I, in particular, wanted to focus on, bands that sometimes are not only underrated, but sometimes they have a hit single and become a one-hit wonder, and that's all they're known for, pretty much. That one song that everybody knows. But I wanted to focus in not only on that one song, but the album that one song showed up on, and how the rest of that album is actually really great. And sometimes other songs on that album are actually way better than the song that became famous, that made them the one-hit wonder. And so that was my idea. And I wanted to focus on a band called The Vapors that had a number 36 in the US hit. So top 40, still made it in the top 40.
It's in there.
In 1980, a song called Turning Japanese. It was number 3 in the UK, but it was like 36, I think, in the US. It's still top 40 because that whole album that song Turning Japanese showed up on is a fantastic album and one of my favorites. And I got introduced to it when I was in high school. I had a couple of songs that showed up on compilation tapes that people had made. Turning Japanese was actually not one of the songs that showed up. I knew that song, but it was not one of the ones that showed up on these compilation tapes. So I had other songs on there, and that sort of got me interested. I eventually bought the cassette tape from what's one of those old like early 90s music stores in the
Sam
mall.
Goody,
Camelot.
FYE, Camelot.
Rex.
Camelot. It was Camelot. That was the one I was thinking of. Bought the
Tony Immortal.
Yep. Bought the cassette tape from Camelot. It came in that big plastic thing to keep you from stealing it. The really long thing that just had the little tape on one end and a big plastic thing on the other. And I listened to that to that album that Turning Japanese was on. The album's called Nuclear Days. And I listened to that album to death and loved it. So that's the album I want to talk about. I want to focus on a couple of songs off that album, but mainly want to talk about that album, how it's really great, even though they're only known for that one song, Turning Japanese.
Yeah. Right off the top, can we address how problematic this song has become in the past like 20 or so years?
Yes, we can talk about that. But I also like if you dig a little deeper on the album.
Oh, I did.
I don't. There are some other problematic things, but
Yeah.
but like there is a thematic thing though
Yeah.
that kind of happens over the course of the whole album, and I sort of feel like it's a little bit forgiven because of the thematic
time and
materials
everything,
the
and
time and
yeah.
stuff. But yeah, it's
Yeah, because the entry that I read was that the song was based off of the loss of love and starting to feel like a stranger in a strange land, like a foreigner. So
Oh,
so they chose Japanese to go along with it.
Well, see, that's where like because there's another, and I want to like I want to talk about this song, even though I didn't even include it on my list. But there's another song on this album called "Letter from Hero."
Yeah,
and it is kind of a song about like an American and a Japanese kids pen pals, basically, and kind of how like leading up to World War II and sort of like the weirdness that would occur between maybe two people who were friends leading up to World War II. And so like it's my absolute favorite song on the album, and I didn't put it on my list because it's like 7 minutes long or something, and there were some other things I wanted to highlight with the other songs. So this kind of 7-minute epic song on this is my favorite song off the album, but I didn't actually even include it on the list. But still, it has those like weird World War II, Cold War vibe lyric things to it that like makes me think that maybe Turning Japanese, the single, wasn't quite so problematic, but I don't know.
Turning Japanese wasn't as literal as that though.
No, it wasn't.
And also still not nearly as problematic as Far Away by Weezer.
Right. True. But actually I read that Turning Japanese, a lot of people thought it was like about masturbation. Like that was what it was about. That was like a long-standing theory of like what that song was about. But
Weird.
The lead singer writer David Fenton, he dispelled that, and he was like, no, absolutely not.
This is not our blister in the sun.
Yeah, it's not our blister. But he was like, actually, though, I kind of wish that theory had been pushed earlier. It's like maybe it would have sold more.
You could just leave the 80s masturbation songs to Cyndi Lauper.
So that's right. She was on the nose with that. So anyway, this album that Turning Japanese was on, it's called Nuclear Days, and I love it. And I'll tell you why I love it. The whole album is just like every riff is infectious. So many hooks. It's so catchy. It's fairly high energy. They slow it down a couple of times, but even on the couple of times, it's a pretty nice slowdown. The lyrics are sometimes, we don't know what the hell he's talking about, but other times like there's a lot of social and political commentary, which, and there's a few, I don't know, sort of teenage songs on there as well. But it's just like the lyrics are good. It just has this energy. And I just consumed it when I was like 15. Like I loved it, even though I was like a whole generation removed from where it was. It just struck a chord with me.
Well, because they formed in the late 70s, right?
Yeah, like I think it said 78 through 82, maybe.
Yeah, because of their first major tour, they were actually opening up for the Jam.
Yeah,
which I found insane.
Yeah, I think I read that the bassist of Jam was who kind of discovered them and got them.
Yep.
And then the person who also produced them, Vic Coppersmith, I think he also did production. He did some producing for the Jam as well.
Yeah, a lot of those like kind of Liverpool bands around that, Oxford and everything.
And I believe they toured with the Jam as well. They followed them around at first, but they had a relatively short career because they only put out 2 albums. They put out Nuclear Days, and then they put out another album called Magnets, just back to back, or almost back to back. The one was 80 and the other was 81, and then they broke up in 82.
Yeah,
supposedly from lack of record label support.
They did a couple of reunions though too
recently. I hadn't even paid attention to that, so like I haven't heard any of that. I haven't listened to any of that.
I looked up a couple of the videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
and
are they old as hell?
Oh God, yeah, they're old as hell, super old.
So the album is called Nuclear Days, and that's kind of a play on word for Nuclear Days. And the whole album is just thick with this like Cold War, nuclear, weird World War II, just weird. It just that kind of stuff. And even the cover of the album is like this newscaster, and he's like has like a map of England, and it's got like a little mushroom cloud over one part, and it's got a little nuclear fallout symbol over another part. So it's just thick with this weird
dystopian energy,
dystopian Cold War stuff. I
mean, with the one of the songs that you chose to put on the playlist that we're including in the show notes here, Bunkers. I mean, that definitely hits home. That was actually my favorite out of the 4 that you sent.
Yeah, and that's why I put that on there instead of like Letter to Hero, which is actually my favorite. But I knew like Bunkers was just like a great kind of dark and
very
just that
Clash-esque.
Yeah. I mean,
which I'm sure Mike was a huge fan of.
I didn't hear anything that sounded like Clash.
It was very like, it was like a more poppy version of like something that would have been on like London Calling with a way more production.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. I have listened to the album that follows it, Magnets, and it's not as good.
No.
It really is not as good. It has some good songs on it, but
like 2 or 3,
but overall it's not that good. And so I don't know what happened because the first album was
sophomore jinx.
Sophomore slump. And then they broke up in 82. So that was the end. So I would encourage everyone to go listen to this album. I love this album. I chose 3 songs specifically to sort of showcase, and I'll talk about them very briefly. The first song, I think, Andy's going to check the list and make sure I'm going in the right order, is Besides Turning Japanese, which most people should know.
Yeah.
Except I'm going to say one thing about Turning Japanese that I remember. My mom said that on General Hospital, there was a character who was like a drug addict. And so every time he would go and get high on the show, they would play Turning Japanese.
What?
Yeah, that was like the music that they would play for his like dark descent into like drug-addled madness.
Yeah, because when I think of drug-addled madness, I think of Turning Japanese.
Apparently, I guess it's not about masturbation. It's apparently about drugs.
Drugs.
But also on General Hospital at that almost same exact time was who? Anybody?
Rick Springfield.
Rick Springfield. Who on some other podcast, if we can do like our favorite albums, that Working Class Dog album is like one of my favorite albums. So we can talk about that later. Yes, everybody knows.
Everybody.
So moving on from Turning Japanese, the next one was Spring Collection. I love that song. It's got those like, is it 30 second? Is that what is that the right number? 30-second notes on the hi-hat that I love so much.
Yeah, I know.
just kicks in.
Just wait until year 5. I got to do a bunch of those.
Yeah, maybe. I have to remember. I keep changing my demos.
The Galileo 7 hi-hat.
Yeah.
Except faster.
Yeah.
I love this song, even though it's also problematic. But I love it just because it's a very cynical song, and he's kind of into this girl, but she's just like such a scenester, and she just does all her, does all the scenester things that people do and dress in this way. Like it's kind of weird because this is like a kind of a post-punk band, but like they have this kind of punk energy, but he's just like dogging on this girl the whole time about like how she dresses, how she looks, how she, but it's, that she's
if
just
you would
like
just change this thing about you, you'd be perfect.
Well, he does this whole thing, this like whole list of like, don't like your hair dyed blue, don't like your plastic shoes, don't like your damn new rose, don't like your casual boat. Like he just like,
he's negging her.
He is, but he's still sort of like, but I still kind of like you. It's weird. It's a weird dynamic.
Creepy.
It's creepy because he does say her something in Dayglow tears all hide your 16 years. So but I don't know how old he was when he wrote the song. So,
I missed that.
Yeah. No, I know. It's in my head. I know that song. But I don't. Maybe he wrote it when he was 17. So
possibly.
But I love that song. It's a great song. The next one is News at 10. And that was probably the second song I ever heard by the Vapors. And it really struck a chord with me. It's about like it's got about like a generational disconnect like between he and his dad, and just that kind of generation gap. It's just, and even at the time, even though I couldn't quite connect to his specific lyrics on it, I was a teenager and I could kind of, I had that same thing like, man,
Fuck you, Dad.
parents just don't understand, especially my dad. But it's just got that really great, like this little guitar lick that comes in at the beginning, this like very sharp cutting guitar lick, which I tried to learn on guitar so many times and I could just never, ever figure it out and never do it like it sounds on the album.
It's all pedals.
I don't know. I think it's just better guitar players actually. But it's like, I love that riff, and this song is just great and it's super catchy, and it's great. And then I think the last one is Bunkers, which
I already touched on.
Andy already touched on. I kind of interpret it as like someone who's like, there was a lot of bad politics and bad societal things in the late 70s and 80s in England. And it just feels like somebody who's like trapped in like a crappy part of the city, going nowhere, can't get out, can't no social upward mobility because of all politics and things like that. And it just sounds like, this is like his life, and he just feels like he's living in a bunker,
which was pretty much all of England in like the late mid 70s through like the mid 80s. Really, it's just like seeing footage of just places in England, not besides like downtown London, where it still looked like war zones.
And he specifically mentioned like rolling tires that were on fire or something like that, and like gangs of street kids and stuff like that. So it's just got that drum beat that just never stops. It's just like that really great poppy drum beat that just goes through the whole thing, and the kind of syncopated guitar, and it's a really cool song. But all of the songs on the album are awesome. So whoever might be tempted to check it out, go listen to it.
Which one was the opening track?
Well, it depends
on Spotify.
Depends on which. Yeah. I don't remember.
Spring Collection is the opening track.
Yeah. Okay.
That was not the opening track on the album I listened to, but it was. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty.
Yeah. Spring
good.
Collection is a great song.
Kicked off the album really good. Maybe you want to listen to the whole thing. Patrick?
I was just going to say that I was shocked how solid these songs are. I've been, into the early Elvis, XTC, Joe Jackson vibe, and it kind of fits right in there. And I had never heard this album before. I thought that Spring Collection and News at 10 might be better. Yeah, I think Spring Collection and News at 10 are probably catchier songs, Japanese, actually.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd never heard the album until Noah had talked about it. I don't know. It was probably a couple of years ago. He was talking about it, and I, checked it out, and I was really surprised. I wasn't that surprised because I know Noah generally has pretty good taste in music. But yeah, I really enjoy this album quite a bit.
Next.
Oh, I didn't know if you had any. I didn't know if you had any thoughts or not.
I'll give you Mike's thoughts. Mike texted me and said, "I listened to the Nuclear Days. It was really good," or something like that.
That's probably pretty much the inflection that he was using too. That's pretty good, man.
I'll try to find his actual text.
I let it play to the end.
Good job, Mike.
Oh, there it is. He said, "I listened to that whole Vapors album. Killer."
He's a man of few words, Mike
He spelled
Rittenhouse.
Vapors with an ER.
What?
I'm sure that was autocorrect.
Probably.
Correcting it to the wrong spelling.
I was probably using voice to text.
Oh, that makes total sense then.
Probably. You don't remember?
That was a couple of days ago.
Oh, I thought you meant like a couple hours ago.
No.
Just cramming last minute for the podcast.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going in alphabetical order, band name wise.
I think also if I'm correct, we're going in chronological order of release of album
Ooh.
By coincidence?
by coincidence.
Interesting.
Think we might be
Really?
actually. Yeah. Weird.
Huh.
I think that is about how that worked out. I think with the exception of the last two.
Are they reversed?
I think so.
Nah,
Maybe.
you
Mike's
guys always ruin everything.
Mike's secondary plan isn't quite working out. But
Fine, I quit.
Nuh-uh, you still got to sit down and talk about that song from The Office.
Was it in the office?
Oh God, it was an iconic episode. It was one of the best cold opens of The Office. I'll cover it when we get to your section.
I remember that. I believe just watched The Office
Okay.
all the way through. I remember that. So Andy, what's yours?
Mine is probably the most cop-out choice of these one-hit wonders, considering they really did actually only have one hit, two, but I'll get into that. The band I chose was Devo.
Who?
Devo.
Yay!
Devo.
Not striking any bells here with the name by itself. What's the song?
They wear those flower pot hats, aka energy don'ts.
Oh, Devo.
Yes, it's pronounced Devo, Mike. A lot of people I know are gonna know who Devo is, and actually, I caught crap from my girlfriend last night, going, "I'm gonna tear your pick apart because that is the laziest pick you could have done." And I was like, not true, because they deserve way more credit than they do, even though they still are around and they still are putting out new music. But everyone knows them for Whip It,
Yep.
which is the first song that we're going to cover off of the album Freedom of Choice.
Can I ask what album is that of theirs? Like what,
Freedom of Choice.
I know, but like what in the order of their
Number.
releases?
Oh,
What
it's
number? Sorry.
it's their second album.
It's only their second album.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
for some reason I thought maybe it was even later than this.
No, because it was Are We Not Men? We Are Devo,
I have that album.
and then Freedom of Choice.
But I don't have Freedom of Choice.
Yeah,
Okay.
for Freedom of Choice is probably my favorite album of theirs. Anyway, I mean,
Mhm.
outside of Are We Not Men, because I had the very early stuff, but
Yeah.
Devo was so ahead of their time. Like nobody else was doing anything like they were with like the synthesizers and everything. Like their only predecessors to stuff like they were doing would have been like Kraftwerk, which was like
Work.
yeah, Kraftwerk was way ahead of their time. I don't even know what time travel machine Kraftwerk came from, but yeah, I mean, but same thing with Devo. I mean, especially for like four dudes from Ohio,
Yep.
like in the middle of nowhere, and like they formed like pretty much around like the old like the Kent State riots, and they just wanted to be like an art band. They formed. They got a couple singles out there. The early one was like Mongoloid, and then like Jocko Homo. But then
Are those problematic?
Jocko Homo, the title is, but the subject matter is not.
What about Mongoloid?
Mongoloid? Slightly, yes.
Slightly problematic. Okay.
Yes.
Sounds
But
a little problem.
slightly, yes, but that's why we are not covering that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, the when they first got signed, their big champions to get them signed were David Bowie and Iggy Pop.
Wow.
Like they happened to hear them while they were on some like Midwest leg of their tour that they were doing, like Iggy for the Idiot and Bowie. I can't remember which album he was supporting, but yeah, they wound up getting them signed, put out a couple singles, and it caught on. Neil Young became a real big fan early on and like recruited them to be in like one of his like home videos that he put out. And like they had him he like gave Devo free reign of like what they wanted to do with this home video, and it just made it super weird. Look it up. Just look up Neil Young and Devo, and you'll see some of the weirdest things.
No idea that Neil Young
Yeah,
connected to Devo in any way.
it's the oddest thing. Look it up. It's the weirdest like
I will.
7 minutes you'll ever see.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
There's no coming back.
yeah. Once you
Don't
see,
make
you
the
can
same mistakes we have made. Learn from them.
learn from us. But yeah, when they released Freedom of Choice, the obvious one that the label wanted to put out as a single was Whip It, because it's just super duper catchy. And if you had MTV back in the day, I mean, you could not go a day without seeing that video at least 3 times, probably. Yeah, because it was all over the place. I mean, you can still, I mean, all I have to do is say Whip It to anybody that watched MTV in the early days, and they can immediately picture that video in their head.
Crack that whip.
Yeah. Yeah, getting the lady with getting the cigarette whipped out of her mouth, and the weird lady with the pies and everything, and it's just weird.
It also
I knew it.
It also coincided with it also coincided with the early days of MTV. So they were looking for content, and they totally capitalized on that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the MTV was the reason that whole album was a success to begin with.
Yes.
I mean, that's the reason they got to go on these crazy tours, and how they just became like a household name and became just immediately iconic. But because, I mean, just look at them. The big yellow nuclear fallout suits, the red energy dome hats, and just they were all a bunch of nerds. And then they capitalized on that, and like they started blowing up, and then like Revenge of the Nerds movie came calling, and they were on the soundtrack there, and they emulated them in the movie, and like they showed up everywhere. Like, as a matter of fact, the only other single that charted for them like anywhere in like the top 50 was the theme from Dr. Detroit.
Doctor.
Huh.
Yeah. See, I don't even remember that song.
Yeah, I'm not surprised Mike knows it, but I
the weird Dan Aykroyd movie that's horrible. I don't get it.
I was just thinking about that movie the other day.
Of course you were.
Yeah, this album was released in 1980, and Whip It's not even the best song on the album, like easily.
I'm sure it's not.
Yeah, because I mean the other three that I included on my list, Girl You Want is just one of the best songs on that entire album, if not the best song on that album. It has been covered multiple times. Soundgarden covered it, which was real weird.
Yeah, that's
that's pretty weird.
Yeah, and then as a tribute to Soundgarden at live shows now and then, Pearl Jam busts it out as a cover. Which
wow.
Is it's crazy like how far and like so many different bands have been influenced by Devo, and you can't really hear it in their sound, but they're the first ones to show up at like a live Devo concert standing on the side of the stage, and then they'll come out and do guest vocals. This the weirdest thing in the world. Yeah, Girl You Want is just a fantastic song. I mean, it's repetitive, it's catchy, and it's the beat is phenomenal. Gates of Steel is the third one I chose, and it's just a super empowering song. It's not the most Devo-esque song on the album. It's like a lot less synth, except for like in between like the verse and choruses is like a pre-chorus, outro chorus and everything. And then the title track, Freedom of Choice, you've probably heard a million times in commercials, on soundtracks, things like that. It's a great way. It's one of the best title tracks that I can remember, like in any album that I own. It's like you want the title track to be something memorable. Freedom of Choice is that track.
I know on their first album, going back and saying how like the was it Gates of Steel doesn't have as much synth.
Yeah,
and I feel like if memory serves me right, because I have the album, but I haven't listened to it in a long time. Like that, their first album, I feel like isn't as heavy on synth. It's like I feel like it's a little bit more guitar. I mean, it's sparse and weird, like their usual stuff.
They were using
not as heavy.
They were using the Moogs for like a little more of like an atmosphere than they were as an instrument than anything else on that first album. Which actually, that's another thing. Later on in life, they actually were the first inductees into the Moog Museum.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good for them.
But yeah, they're obviously they're still going. They have the same touring lineup minus one of the Bobs because he passed away a few years ago, and the original drummer hasn't been with the band forever. But currently the touring and studio drummer is Josh Freese, which I used to listen to him in a band in high school called the Vandals, which were like a punk rock band out of the Bay Area. And then he's also known for going on tour with like a Perfect Circle, which is like Maynard from Tool's other band, and like he's played with a ton of people. He's like one of the best drummers in rock and roll. Yeah. But yeah, and like for a few shows, like a run of shows that they did, Fred Armisen from Saturday Night Live fame in Portlandia, he was their touring drummer.
And what was his band? Was it Trenchmouth or no?
Yeah,
it was the Trenchmouth. Was that his?
That was Fred Armisen's band. Right. But again, that's another thing. He showed up in like a weird punk rock band later in life, but his most favorite band in the world is Devo. Yeah. And he said it was like the biggest honor of his life to be able to play with Devo.
I'm sure.
That's cool.
I'm sure. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But the other way is a lot of people would probably recognize anybody from Devo is probably Mark Mothersbaugh, the lead singer and main songwriter. He's done a ton of composing, put together soundtracks, been music editor and everything like that. But he wrote the theme to Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Did he really?
Yeah,
That's it skips full circle. It's
See?
come back around.
I told you.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had no idea. That's great.
he also wrote the theme song for Rugrats, the Nickelodeon cartoon.
Too old
yeah.
for that, but
Pretty much
Right.
any Wes Anderson movie that you see, Mark Mothersbaugh is the guy behind all
That's
the music.
really.
Yeah, that's right.
He did all the music for the Lego movie, and he also did all the music for Thor Ragnarok.
Huh.
Yeah. So he
Wow.
well,
I believe he did the music for Spirit of 76.
what's that?
What's that, Mike?
What's Spirit of
It's-
76?
It's a really, really cheesy movie from the 80s.
Oh, all right.
He also did a surf project called the Wipeouters.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So which album is Dare to Be Stupid on?
See, there's another thing right there. Weird Al Yankovic was obviously inspired by Devo, like hardcore. So yeah, that's another big one.
Next.
Wow, that's a hell of a segue, Mike.
Actually, I don't know if either of them have something to say about Devo, but I will say that I listened to the album, and
Was it killer?
it was killer adjacent.
Wow.
No, I enjoyed it. I recognize most of the songs. I mean, I've heard them before. I don't know if I've ever actually listened to the album in its entirety, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, Devo is easily in my top 5 bands of all time. So, I mean, it was the obvious choice for me. I had other possibilities that I was going to go with, but I love talking about Devo, and I think too many people forget about Devo.
Well, and I don't think that I have listened enough to that second album. Like I had the first album that I've listened to a lot, but like this I don't think I have listened to the second album enough, and this makes me want to go back and
it's worth
to
it
again. I'm sure it is.
Any thoughts on Devo, Chris?
On anything.
I dig Devo.
He's pulling a mic response.
Killer.
He whips it.
Yeah.
They're all right.
No, I like Devo. That's all I got.
They're an institution. What can you say?
Yeah,
Exactly. Right. I mean, they're still going today, and the last album that they put out in 2020 is a fantastic album. Like the initial songs that I chose for this, before I forgot that it was all supposed to be songs from the album that the single came from. I included one of them from the last album, and it still holds up. It's still amazing, and they're still doing the damn thing. They're playing probably in a city like this coming weekend, most likely. At a festival, of course. Yeah. So sick of festivals.
Yeah.
But on to a band that is no longer around. Patrick, you chose a band that I was a little surprised by, and then I listened to the album, and then I was a little surprised by it myself.
Huh. Is that a good thing or a bad
No,
thing?
it's a good. No, it's a good thing, because I'd never actually sat down and really listened to this band before.
Okay, well, I chose Fountains of Wayne, formed in 1995 in New York City by Chris Collingwood and Adam Schlesinger. They took their name, Fountains of Wayne, from an actual fountain store in Wayne, New Jersey, which is it was around until I think 2009 or something. But so they did a self-titled album on Atlantic Records, came out in '96. It was kind of grungy, got a little airplay with Radiation Vibe and Sink to the Bottom. And then they followed it up with it was basically the two of them on the first album, the two guys that formed the band. And they brought in their touring band to record the follow-up, and they had a bigger budget. You know, Atlantic was throwing all the money at them to have a big hit record. They did a great crop of songs, just great power pop record all the way through. They had Red Dragon Tattoo, fantastic song, sounds like a blueprint for what would eventually become their big hit. And then that album completely went under the radar and did not sell, and they got dropped.
Ouch.
So Yeah. So then they, Adam Schlesinger, you might know, is a very accomplished songwriter, and he did some other things that we'll talk about.
Oh yeah.
But so they basically holed up and just kind of wrote songs for another record, and he had a hard time even getting Chris Collingwood to participate because he was so dejected from having been dropped by the label. And so he funded all the recording sessions himself. You know, they just did it on their own without any backing. You know. And went in and just recorded all these random songs that ended up being the album Welcome Interstate Managers that came out in 2003. It was weird because it's Parkway is such a straight sort of record, and then Welcome Interstate Managers is kind of all over the place. Like there's a lot of really mellow and poignant songs that you wouldn't expect from a band like this.
Yeah.
And then there's also the ridiculous, power pop
The
songs
single.
like the hit everyone knows, which is Stacy's Mom.
She's got it going on.
Exactly. This was about the time that the American Pie movies were coming out, and I always wondered if maybe Stifler's mom was a little bit of an inspiration for this song. But the song itself, the lyrics are pretty silly, and obviously very risque and problematic
Yeah.
by today's standards. But the hooks it's just brimming with hooks, and it's a very well arranged track. So many great hooks and harmonies. And the moment for me that really hooks me on the album, on this particular track, is the bridge, which I actually pulled out a guitar to double check this. It takes it from an E chord. It's in an E key at the beginning. The bridge takes it to C, and the rest of the song goes up to C, and it just totally adds this extra layer of energy to it. It's a really ingenious bridge, and it really just makes the song for me. Like every time I've heard it a million times, but every time that part of the song comes on, I have to stop and listen to it because I think it's so ingenious. And that's Adam Schlesinger's song doctoring, is what that is. Like he was just an expert, and I should mention he died in March of 2020 from COVID.
Yeah.
Oh dear God.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So and he was like just a few years older than us. Like he was, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. But so that song really polarized the band for people because it was, it was like, I think it was hit Billboard number 21, I think. So it was up there, it wasn't as ubiquitous as a lot of, bands, but it was an earworm, and it did get played, and people probably remembered it more because it was so catchy.
And the video.
Yeah, and the video was fair.
Yeah, and the video, right.
As well.
And actually, I looked this up. Chris Collingwood talked about the song a little bit, and he hated it.
Oh yeah. I've read that too.
Yeah. He said he thought that Adam was too good a songwriter to have that song as his sort of calling card, and that being successful on a novelty song meant that you would always be a novelty band to the public. And so he was very. He said he regretted putting it out as a single, and that he everybody else knew it was going to be a hit, and so did he, but he was the only one that thought it was a bad thing that it would be a novelty song. That was a hit.
It's a valid concern.
And he actually mentioned a song called I-95, and also a song called The Girl I Can't Forget, which is, I would say, probably an even better song than Stacy's Mom, and just as catchy. So that for future listening, The Girl I Can't Forget, it's on a B-sides comp. It's just buried, and it's so brilliant. But going down the list of songs themselves from the album, so I put Stacy's Mom on there, obviously. And then I put Hey Julie, which was a single in some territories, I believe, as well. It's more acoustic, but it's also very catchy.
Yeah.
And then I put a song called Hackensack on, which is a much more sort of poignant, slow song, which is the type of thing you wouldn't expect from them. And I'd say at least a third of the album is sort of that slower style of music, And I like this one. It has like a little bit of surfy guitar in it, which I really like. And I noticed with their songwriting, because they were kind of a Lennon-McCartney sort of duo where you never knew who wrote what.
Yeah.
But you can kind of tell because Chris Collingwood was much more into the more mellow stuff. But Hackensack is a good example of how they sort of do like the sad sack schlub character who's just trying to get through the day. But they always have these very precise details mixed into the lyrics that makes it seem real, even if it's just a character song.
Yeah.
So Hackensack is really good with that. It really does sound like he's singing about somebody he knew in high school and waiting for them to come back to town one day or something. And then I put Mexican Wine, which was probably the other closest single to Stacy's Mom as far as getting some airplay, and just a great power pop hook.
Yeah, that was the other one that I actually remembered, like outside of Stacy's Mom. Like I remember, I was like, okay, I know this song.
So for anybody that wants less acoustic-y stuff, you can replace Hey Julie and Hackensack with Little Red Light and Bright Future and Sales as more rockin' songs from that album.
Yeah.
But none of them, were as instant as Stacy's Mom, probably. But I was impressed with how wide a range of music there is on this record.
Yeah.
Another great one on the album is, actually, I could just go down the list and talk about most of the songs, honestly. But Fire Island is a very poignant but also funny song. Oh, I was going to say, so Adam's career apart from Fountains of Wayne was probably more what he was known for, having written the song That Thing You Do, which, got a Grammy nomination and I believe it came out in between their first and second Fountains of Wayne albums. So you would have thought that Utopia Parkway would have benefited a little bit from that, but it did not happen. So there were I think they said there were 300 song submissions to try to find the perfect song for that movie. They wanted something that sounded like British Invasion 1964, Beatlesque, and I feel like that song just nails it. Like it's like, half Please Me and half She Loves You, and he just got it perfect. I mean, I know that they said there were like 300 other songwriters that submitted songs for that. I know XTC's Andy Partridge was one of them.
Oh, wow.
That ended up being the song. And he's done a lot of soundtrack work. He, he did a song for the film Music and Lyrics that Drew Barrymore and Hugh Grant sing, Way Back Into Love. Very cheesy pop song, but it's super catchy.
Yeah.
He also did, he did all of the music for a show called Crazy Ex-Girlfriends, which I believe is like 150 different pieces of music. I haven't seen that show.
It's such a good show.
It's awesome.
Is it?
Watch it, Patrick.
It's so good.
Okay. And then he was also in he had a quote unquote super group called Tinted Windows. Do you guys know them?
Nope.
Tinted Windows. Okay. Well, check it out. He was the bass player. And then you had Bunny Carlos from Cheap Trick on drums.
Oh.
You had James Iha from Smashing Pumpkins on guitar.
What?
And you had Taylor Hanson from Hanson on lead vocals.
What?
Yes, there's a real thing. They had one album.
What brought them together?
Weird.
I have no idea. I think
amazing.
He probably had some songs that he wanted to get out there.
Huh. Interesting.
They actually sound a lot more normal than you would expect from that lineup. I think.
Yeah.
But there's some very infectious tunes mixed in there. As far as a personal connection, I just really respect his songwriting and how he can always fit the hooks in there and the harmonies. And they're sort of deceptively ingenious little sections in the songs. And, the Stacy's Mom bridge is the one I mentioned, but all of his songs are kind of like that in one way or another. And I try to do a bit of that.
Yeah, the one thing about thing you missed about Schlesinger's other career with the songwriting and movies, he also wrote all the songs that Josie and the Pussycats sing in the Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh yeah. I had that down and I totally glossed over it.
Oh, and then also the one thing you missed in the history of the band was Collingwood and Schlesinger actually started out in an a cappella group called the Octet.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very strange.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is strange. Well, Patrick, the other night, Chris and I were hanging out and we were kind of going through some of the music. Like it was a little earlier, I think, before we had all made our final decisions, but we were kind of trying to go through some of the albums and kind of hanging out and listening to it. And we knew you were doing Fountains of Wayne, but I don't know if at that point we knew like which album you were doing or what the songs were. And so we put I was thinking I saw Stacy's Mom there on the second album and I thought well, that must be the one. That must be the one hit wonder. But then I remembered seeing a video for a Fountains of Wayne song way back in probably 95 or something. That
Yeah.
I liked, like whatever it was, I was like, oh, that's a cool song. But I know it was not Stacy's
Yeah.
Mom, because that's very easy to remember. Like
yeah.
you would not forget that.
Yeah.
So it was something else. And so I was like, oh, it must be off the first album. So we started putting on the first album, and then Jennifer is like starting to sing along to like every song that we're playing. Like we're just letting the first album play, and she knows every single song. She's singing like all the lyrics. And I think it was maybe track 2 on the first album is the one that I remember.
Sink to the Bottom.
Yeah, maybe that was the one that had the video. Although I think
Yeah, it did.
Okay, yeah. So that was maybe the one that was etched in my memory. It's very kind of dirgy, right? Like it goes from sort of quiet to like wall of sound distortion thing. Yeah,
Very grunge sort of.
Yeah. So that's the one I remember. So we actually listened to that, and Jennifer knew all of it, and it was just interesting, like because I had never actually listened to that first album. So it was fun to do that.
There's a song on that album actually that I've covered for years. It's another novelty song, of course. It's "Leave the Biker." That's on the first album.
We were listening to that, and because we were trying to figure out which one you would be doing, Patrick. And we were, we thought, oh well, this has to be the one, the earlier one that there was, a lesser known hit.
Yeah.
And then when you said you were doing the one, what is it? Interstate.
Welcome Interstate Managers.
Yeah, Welcome Interstate Managers. I was surprised because Stacy's Mom is it's kind of a, it's such a catchy song, but it's kind of, sophomoric, really. I mean, it's like just, it's kind of least common denominator, kind of,
It is. It definitely is.
It totally is.
But that being said, I bought that album for that song when it came out, and was really surprised by how good the rest of it was. It was because that song, and actually I remember thinking, man, I'd be pissed if like this was what I wanted for the rest of the album, because it's not like that at all. It's not so tongue-in-cheek and poppy. There's a lot more nuance throughout the album, which I found very surprising when I first listened to it.
Actually, Chris Collingwood on that same interview said the same thing. He said the record was stylistically all over the place, and that song didn't fit in, and it sounded like a completely different band. He hated having it on there.
Well, and it's funny because I remember, because I had that album for a long time, and eventually it made its way to the giveaway bin, and that was part of what didn't stick for me as much, as because it's I like a varied sound, but I prefer an album that's really cohesive. Like you almost sometimes there will be an album where you almost feel like you're listening to the same song, for 16 tracks or whatever. Which I don't always like that, but I like that feel of cohesiveness. And this one definitely doesn't have that, but it's got some real gems in it for sure.
Agreed.
Mike, do you have something to say about Fountains of Wayne?
I had never heard a single song of theirs other than Stacy's Mom until this past week. And I was pleasantly surprised for exactly the reason that the two of you just said, that the album has so many different sounds on it, different genres and styles. And I mean, there's a couple songs towards the end that have like an Oasis vibe. And I would not expect that from the band that gave us Stacy's Mom. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. Maybe even killer.
Oh, and with that, for Patrick's segment, it is closing time. But speaking of closing time, see, that's how you do a damn segue right there. So, Mike, you are going to be discussing the band famous for the song Closing Time.
Yes. The band is Semisonic.
Or Semisonic, if you're nasty.
And
that's good.
I mean, everyone's pretty much heard Closing Time. I mean, it's an extremely overplayed song. It's been on a ton of soundtracks.
It was in The Office.
Yeah, it was in The Office, which you just reminded me of.
If you've ever been in a bar,
Yep.
Yeah.
Bars play it all the time. You know, it's on the radio all the time.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't really need to, I don't think, explain to anybody what that song is.
I just know that when I hear that song, it is time to go home. Gotta love that shit.
But you know, Semisonic, they kind of suffer from the same issues that a lot of these bands go through, which is it's like a mega hit and no one ever really listened to anything else they had, even though they put out singles, none of them hit.
They just bought that one single and that was it.
Yep. And when I first heard that song, I mean, back when it first came out, I mean, it wasn't even a hit yet. I mean, I probably heard it 2 or 3 times, like on the radio or something. And I really liked it because, I mean, if you take a step back and ignore the fact that it's extremely overplayed and just kind of listen to it, it's actually a really good song.
Yeah.
You know, lyrically, I mean, it's almost poetic in parts. I mean, and it's kind of, you know, it has hills and valleys, which I always think, you know, I always appreciate when songs have those. I think the thing that really got me is when I was listening to it and it gets to that part where the guitar comes in and it's like, nah, 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 and like, it was just, you know, that just grabbed me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this band's kind of cool. So
wait a second, what that guitar sound like again, Mike?
Nah, 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 nah. So anyway, you know, I heard it a few times. I liked it enough that I bought the album. I ran out and got the CD and
Sweet.
listened to it. And that was the first song on the album.
Wait, Closing Time starts off the album?
Yeah.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't even notice that.
Yep.
Should have been the last.
Well, that's terrible.
Right. Which actually didn't say the name of the album yet. I guess I should say that. Feeling, was it Feeling Strangely
Fine.
Fine?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Wow.
Feeling strangely fine.
Yeah. So the name of the album is Feeling Strangely Fine. Anyway, so I listened to the rest of the album after Closing Time. The next track, which is the first of the tracks that I put on my list.
Great song.
Yep. It's Singing in My Sleep.
Yep.
And that song is like way better than Closing Time.
Yep.
It is.
I mean, not that Closing Time is not a good song, but that song is definitely the best song on the album.
And that had to get like, I recognize that when I was listening to it, I recognized that. So like it must have gotten, for me to recognize it, like it must have gotten some traction somewhere at some point.
I
because
think
it totally registered. Like I knew the song.
I think a couple of the tracks did get played like on the radio, or you know, they tried to put them out as singles, and maybe for a couple of months you heard them.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, it's not like
It ain't no closing time.
yeah, it's no Closing Time. So yeah, that song's really good. One of the things I really like about it that I know Noah probably likes is it does that thing where you have like one instrument that keeps playing like the same 3 notes
Yep.
over and over, but while the other ones are playing like a chord progression. And
That's my favorite.
yeah, I
Yes,
know.
love
I
it.
knew you'd like that. The third song on the album, which is not on my list, also does that, and I figured you would like that one too, Noah.
Yeah, we listened. Chris and I listened to that whole album as well, and yeah, like every song was great. It was
Another song on my list was I'm drawing blanks. Andy, can you?
Secret Smile.
Secret Smile. That's the one I was trying to think of. Secret Smile is like the first 2 tracks are, I mean, I can't say they're like exactly alike, but they have a similar like upbeat, like driving feel to them. Secret Smile is like a completely different, like it's laid back. It's kind of a slow ballady song. I mean, great lyrics, great melodies, you know, definitely. I mean, it may even be better than Closing Time.
Yeah, this song was actually was actually also on the soundtrack for Charmed and Dawson's Creek.
Which one?
The song you're talking
Oh,
about.
Secret
right now?
Smile.
Yeah.
Okay.
no, if it was on Dawson's Creek, then it's got
It's the creek.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to withdraw Semisonic from this list. I didn't realize they made it onto Dawson's Creek.
Well, and it was also in the movie Simply Irresistible.
Yes, Noah, that is the Dawson's
It
Creek
had
song.
it had Sarah Michelle Gellar in it.
I don't
Oh,
know.
I saw that not very long ago.
Oof.
What?
Savannah brought that home from like the dollar bin, the
Oh.
DVDs, and we
Oof.
watched it.
What was my fourth song?
Wow. Completely pleased.
Completely pleased. Yes. Also another like completely. See how I did there?
Pleased.
A completely different style than the other ones. That one's kind of a weird. I don't know. It's I don't even know what kind of style to describe it as. It's just like almost silly but sincere at the same time.
Sure. We'll go with that.
Sincerely silly.
Sure. It's
Wow.
completely sincerely silly.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
So anyway, that's about all I have to say. I didn't prepare for this. So
Well, one of the other songs on this album, "Never You Mind," was also on the soundtrack for the Drew Barrymore movie "Never Been Kissed."
Ah,
so they were really trying.
Nice.
They were
They
getting their songs all over the place.
They're getting there. Their A&R guys were on it.
None of those songs have nearly the amount of plays that Closing Time has. Though
I mean, it went platinum in the U.S. and the UK, but only gold in Canada.
the album.
Those Canadians are tough customers.
Well, they also can't afford platinum because it's all going towards healthcare, which I would gladly take over a platinum.
Me too.
So, any thoughts on Semisonic, Andy? Did you listen to the whole album?
I did.
Yeah.
Killer.
Killer.
Excellent.
No, I was actually, there was another one that I was pleasantly surprised.
I have
by.
some thoughts. Oh, okay. I was going to say that congratulations, Mike, because I've spent the last 20 years trying to never hear Closing Time again, and you made it happen.
Mission accomplished.
I think it lacks the unalloyed lyrical sophistication of a song such as Stacy's Mom, but it was pretty good. The other songs I actually quite liked, especially Singing in My Sleep. I thought had a great melody to it.
Yeah.
But I have to say that the name Semisonic to me reads as not as good as Sonic Youth. But
Yes.
but it was pretty good.
Semisonic Youth. It's like a Sonic Youth tribute.
Hearing Closing Time again and these other songs, I was feeling strangely fine. So
Mike, you mentioned earlier about Closing Time, something about it being poetic, where I find the lyrics extremely straightforward. So, I mean, I think they are poetic in a sense, but at the same time, they're it feels like it was written in an afternoon. But
Sure.
one of those songs where you write it in an afternoon and it just pours out of you, and it's just this hit, And I remember. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I just really liked the lyric. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
Yeah, that is. There's your poetry right there. Well, and I this was another one where I bought the album based off of one song and was really surprised. I was like, this is really good. And I really like his voice. I think he's just got a good voice, and man,
It's very
singing in my
friendly.
sleep. Yeah, it is very friendly. And singing it like the beginning, just like those first keyboard notes coming in, it just like brings you into that song. And then when it hits the chorus, it's just so powerful. And I mean, I liked that album so much that when Chemistry, their follow-up, came out, I bought that and I really enjoyed that one too. That's another one where you can just listen straight through and has some great tunes on it.
You had something, Noah?
I did. So a coworker of mine at one point, when she found out I was in a band, started to chat me up about some music. And she had said, like, that song Closing Time by Semisonic, everybody thinks it's about, being at a bar at 3 a.m. when they close, but really it was about the birth of his son and blah, 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 blah. And went and tried to like, and quoted specific lines from it and like tried to convince me that this was that the real meaning behind the song was like about being in the hospital and the waiting room thing when his son was born or something like that. And I just completely dismissed it and forgot about it and never thought about it again until this came back up. And I was like, oh yeah. And I told you, Mike, to do some research about it, but I don't think you did. Probably.
No, of course.
Are you sure that they weren't talking about Brick?
No, that's about abortion.
That's about abortion. No.
But I can see somebody.
No. So I just Googled it. I just Googled closing time birth of son. And it comes up Closing Time by Semisonic is about childbirth, not Last Call at Bar? ? Should I investigate?
Yes.
Should I go on?
Jesus.
Okay.
You can't leave us hanging
right.
like that.
I just looked because this is the research. This is live research, folks. In 1998, a song called Closing Time
Man's a trained professional.
as a debut single from a band called Semisonic. The song featured lyrics ostensibly about a lonely person's experience during last call at a bar. It would be Semisonic's only hit, but what a hit. Closing Time was immediately and permanently the go-to song for the end of the night at bars, weddings, bar mitzvahs, parties, quinceañeras, and Semisonic concerts. But here's the thing. No one realized Semisonic had a little bit of that Robert Frost mojo in them. It turns out the entire song was actually a metaphor for childbirth. Semisonic's lead singer, Dan Wilson, explained during a performance at his 25th reunion at Harvard.
Harvard, really?
Millions and millions. Oh, fuck. I just lost it. Millions and millions of people bought the song and heard the song and didn't get it. They think it's about being bounced from a bar, but it's about being bounced from the womb. So let's go line by line through Closing Time and try to interpret it in its alternate context. Oh dear God.
Let's not and say we never did.
Doors equal the vagina. We're off to a smashing start. Closing Time. Turn all the lights on over every boy and every girl.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Boy girl stuff makes more sense now.
It's like the nurse.
And I guess this line refers to hospital lights, unless it's a metaphor on top of a metaphor and is referring to the beginning of human consciousness or something.
Can we?
All right, I'm not going to read anymore.
Can we find who wrote this and slap the living crap out of them?
But if you want it, all you have to do is Google Closing Time Birth of Son, and you can read the full article and interpret for yourself.
And you see how poetic it really is.
Yeah, Mike was right but Mike's like, I got to read the rest of this.
Oh man, making that made me feel like I'm a little bit high, like I've been smoking a little bit of supergrass. And speaking of supergrass,
what a segue.
God damn, I'm good at these. Chris, you picked the band Supergrass, who I had completely forgotten about, and I've loved them. I completely forgot about Supergrass.
You're not the only one. And the reason why I chose this band is they are not, if you live anywhere but the US, almost, they're not really a one-hit wonder.
No.
They are quite popular in the UK.
Very.
But in the US, I come across people all the time and, we'll get to talking about music and I'll say something about Supergrass and they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then, I'll mention, well, they had this song called All Right and it was on the Clueless soundtrack. And they're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Nobody ever seems to know who they are. And so I thought it was high time that they got a little exposure on the 5-year mission, the podcast. So, I mean, Patrick mentioned when we were discussing, what artists we were going to do and what songs, he mentioned that they weren't really, one-hit wonders. They didn't, they have 6 albums. Mm-hmm. But again, I think that they have some really great stuff and really one song that your everyday schmo would know. So,
right.
They are from the UK. I can't remember exactly where they're from. It doesn't matter.
They're from the UK.
Yeah, they're from the UK. That's good enough. It's Gaz and Rob Coombs, and actually Rob is his brother and didn't join the band till like 2002, I think.
Yeah.
And then Mick Quinn and Danny Goffey, and Gaz was the lead vocalist, writes the songs, and he and Danny were actually in a band together when they were 16 and 18
Yeah.
called the Jennifers.
The Jennifers, yeah.
I thought that was funny because, you know, my wife's name is Jennifer. But then they met, Gaz was working at some restaurant, I think, called The Harvester.
Mm-hmm.
And he met Mick and they started playing together and formed Theodore Supergrass.
Yeah, the long name.
Yeah, which I thought was great, actually. And what's funny is they had this idea that they were Theodore Supergrass, but they'd have this character, and they wouldn't have to do interviews. They just have questions sent in advance, and they'd animate this little character, and answer the questions. But it cost too much money, so they scrapped that whole idea, and they dropped the Theodore and just became Supergrass. Because I didn't know any of this. I've been a fan of the band since their first album.
Yeah,
I didn't know any of that, and I just think it's really fun to go back and find these things out. They released their first album in '95, and it was called I Should Coco, and that's the album that I chose. They were in their early teens at the time, early 20s or late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
And it shows on this album. It's there's a lot of raw stuff going on here. There's a lot of, based on what they wrote later on some of their later albums, there's not a lot of depth to a lot of these lyrics on the surface. To be honest, I don't know if I can tell you what some of these songs are about. Their first single was called Caught by the Fuzz, and that's pretty straightforward. It's basically it was Gaz talking about how he got busted by the cops.
Weed.
He had weed. Yeah. So that one's pretty straightforward. But it's funny when you read the lyrics, because at first he's like, I got caught by the fuzz, and then they take him in and they're trying to figure out how he got the drugs, and they like call his mom. And at the end of the song, his mom's like, "You're gonna get it when your dad finds out." Like, you never should have gone out in the first place. It's just fun. It's like totally from this 19-year-old's point of view, or 18, whatever it was when he wrote it.
18.
Yeah. So I really enjoy that perspective. But that song was it did pretty well. But the next song they released, which is called Man Size Rooster.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't choose. Caught by the Fuzz wasn't one of the ones that I chose. I chose the first song on the album, which is what is it?
I'd Like to Know. Yeah,
I'd Like to Know. That one is just a fun. It's just a fun opener. I mean, it's just a driving good time. And if you know the song All Right is very, very Britpop. I mean, it is. It's got like the jangly keys and just the fun and bouncy song. The rest of the album isn't really like that. It's almost like a Brit punk kind of pop feel. But I Want to Know, or I'd Like to Know is a really good, just brings you in. But then Man Size Rooster came out and it hit 20 on the UK charts, I think. And so I've read through the lyrics. And what's funny is I couldn't figure out what it was talking about. So I looked up, I looked online and I was looking for some kind of interpretation, and this was the funniest one I found. It said apparently about someone with a massive knob.
Yeah.
So apparently that's what this song is about.
Yep.
And it hit 20 on the UK charts. And then the next one that came, Lenny, was their third single, which is one of the ones I chose. And that's just another just fun, the lyrics aren't real deep. It's just, there's a lot of repetition in the lyrics, but it's just fun to listen to. And then All Right was their fourth single, which was the one that really hit. It was on the Clueless soundtrack. And I feel like Supergrass is one of those bands, I feel like in the mid to late 90s, you had like this glut of bands that you knew one song from, and you just never heard anything else from them ever again. And they showed up on soundtracks like Clueless or Empire Records or something, Can't Hardly Wait, all these teen movies where they had all this popular music of the time, but then you never hear of them again. But I really think Supergrass kind of rises above a lot of that ilk at the time. And this album is just one that you can just listen straight through, and it's just except, All Right Again is more of a kind of has a lot more of a pop bend than anything else in the album.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got a real good feel all the way through. It's just a good album. And it's actually not even my favorite album of theirs. I'm a big fan of the eponymous album Supergrass from '99. But really, yeah, that one has like Moving and Pumping on the Radio,
Oh yeah.
The latest album,
yeah.
they broke up they broke up in 2009, but I think they're touring again.
Yeah,
now.
they did their UK tour, and then like Denmark and Finland and a few other places, but then the pandemic hit and they had to cancel the US leg.
Yeah, and they have an album called Life on Other Planets from 2002, but I think
I saw them on that tour at Birdie's.
Yeah, because that's the live album, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the last album they put out in 2008 is called Diamond Hoo Ha, with the single Diamond Hoo Ha Man, and it just these if you can't say anything else about Supergrass, they have some swagger, serious swagger.
Well, off that last album that they put out, that's the song Rough Knuckles is just a banger and weird, and it kind of makes you cringe a little bit, but it's awesome.
Yeah. And I just love Supergrass. I think they're so great. I would love, again, they started touring again. I would love to see them in concert. Yeah. But I Should Coco, and I don't know. I have no idea where that album name came from.
It's British slang for I think I should leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I like it. I like it even more now. so yeah, I just think these guys are great. And from the mid 90s, where there was a whole lot of grunge going on and a lot of heavier stuff, and these guys come out and just rock it out and make it fun.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean, especially for a 3-piece band.
Yeah, exactly. And Rob Gaz's brother joined later for around Life on Other Planets when they were touring then on keys. And my guess would be that he came in on keys and then just stayed, came in on keys to play live. But originally it was just the 3-piece, and their videos are fun too.
Noah, I'm sure you have some thoughts on Supergrass.
I do. When Chris was originally talking about this, and I think I even looked it up, and I also know Patrick talked about this, that I don't think they had, they were really big in England. Their big one-hit wonder was in the UK, but I don't think they had a big, I don't think they had a chart-topping thing here in the US.
Outside of All Right, yeah.
And I don't even know if did All Right.
But I specifically remember Pumping on the Stereo was pretty big here, because I can still even picture the video for it.
I feel like as soon as he played the song, I knew it. And I don't know how I knew it, because I've never owned it. I've never I don't know, but I immediately knew it, and I knew the name. I knew the name Supergrass. That name was all over the place at one point in my life. But I never listened to them. I don't know why. Maybe I just dismissed them. I was like, oh, that's some kind of hippie band or something. I don't know.
Look at their haircuts.
Yeah, but I don't even know what they look like. I think I just knew the name, and that's it. But I knew the name, so somehow the name was popular enough that it permeated whatever and I was staying underground on a lot of stuff. So for that to be in my brain, and then to actually know the song once I heard it, it was weird. It was on a lot of soundtracks, and I think it was in a few commercials and stuff too. So it was kind of that Pumping on the Stereo was all over the place. Yeah, it was, but it's just weird that it doesn't coincide with a US chart.
Pumping on the Stereo had a very
psychedelic video.
It was like Muppets, but it wasn't Muppets, but it had big puppet things, and it was so cool because they had these puppeteers that were puppeting these giant creatures that were the band, and it was just really neat. Right. I remember seeing that for the first time and thinking, this is just blowing my mind. This is so cool.
I really thought that was their big song, because that was the one that got me into them really. But I remembered that video. I only saw the video, I think, once or twice, but you don't forget it.
No.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And they don't. I don't think they ever charted in the U.S.
No.
As far as I could find, I don't think they ever did. So they were real. I mean, they had All Right reached number 2 on the UK charts, and it stayed there for like 6 weeks, I think. But they just never were able to crack the charts in the US. And most of that is probably because of the music that was being played, nonstop on the radio in the US at the time.
I also feel like that this they were kind of riding on the coattails of a bunch of other kind of psychedelic Brit pop bands at the time, like the Stone Roses and the was it the Happy Mondays? And
oh yeah,
I feel like there was a lot of that like happening in the early 90s, these sort of, even James to a certain degree, like they were kind of, that was all sort of building. I feel like Supergrass was kind of late, or they were kind of like riding on the coattails of
James had that huge hit with Laid.
And and the other one, what's it, Sit Down, remember that one by James?
I don't remember that one.
Oh, that's a good one. You
don't
remember Sit Down?
I feel like I came across Stone Roses when I was looking up information for Supergrass. So I think there may be some connection, some crossover there somewhere. Yeah.
So I bought a Stone Roses album not knowing anything about them. And at the time I was really into Guns N' Roses. And I thought, oh, this sounds like a combination of Rolling Stones and Guns N' Roses. I can't wait to hear what this is. And I think I listened to it once.
Yep.
And I was like, what is this boring crap? Of course, I was probably like 18 or something at the time.
You wouldn't have been into
Mike,
it.
I was probably like 17 or 18, and I heard this Stone Roses song on this like late night radio thing, and I got the album and I went home and played it, and I was like, what is this boring crap? Something along those lines.
So this back to Chris's choice.
Isn't that a movie?
Chris's choice?
Yeah. Oh, Sophie's Choice.
The Sophie's Choice.
It's about abortion.
Like Rick.
But Supergrass is one of those bands that I've heard their name thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
And probably from Chris, at least, one of those thousand.
I've said it in your presence more than once, I'm sure.
Like it's a band that I've always heard of, but like when I went to listen to this album, I barely remember All Right. I heard it and I'm like, okay, I recognize it. It's familiar.
If you've seen Clueless, you've heard it.
Right. Like that's probably what I remember it from.
Everybody that was a teen in the 90s has heard it at least once.
Yeah. So, but like, it's not one of those songs that like, as soon as you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that song. I kind of remember it, but I remember the name Supergrass far more than I remember the song.
Just imagine if they were Theodore Supergrass.
Then you would definitely remember it, but definitely not listen to it.
I would have just thought it was a dude.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah. I have a little bit of a history, a love-hate sort of Supergrass relationship. In 1997, I was preparing to release the first thing I'd ever put out on CD. And I had a song on it called In It for the Money that I thought was really super clever. And then I went to the record store and found the Supergrass album In It for the Money. And I thought, God, they took my idea. And so I didn't buy the album because I was upset. And then I saw the pumping on the stereo video, and that freaked me out and gave me nightmares. So I didn't buy that album either. And then eventually I got the Supergrass's 10 compilation, and I heard All Right and all these other great songs. And they have a very Stonesy vibe to me. Very, very much. As far as the Brit pop thing goes, there are more Stones than Beatles for sure.
Oh yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to mention about them is they recorded one of their albums locally at the Pop Machine.
Yep.
Where the Madeira, my surf band, records all our stuff. And so I was in there and they were talking, the brothers there were talking about working with them, and I saw their record on the wall and I was like, oh, that's cool. I think it might have been Diamond Hoo Ha, but I'm not positive about that.
It was.
I didn't know that.
It was.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So they recorded that here, 5 minutes from where I live.
That is cool.
Yeah. So, but cool band. I really like them a lot. I've been a fan for a while. Grudgingly some of the time.
I've always thought you looked a little bit like Gaz.
I don't know how to take that.
Not like I would, mistake either one of you for the other, but I just, I remember, I think I knew Supergrass before I knew you, but I think when I first saw you, I was like, that guy kind of looks like the guy from Supergrass.
Must have been with the frizzy hair. I probably was wearing sunglasses.
Well, you don't have the sideburns aren't quite as extreme.
Yeah. That's what it was the sideburns.
Yeah, there you go.
Everybody thinks Supergrass is about weed or something, but in fact, it's a euphemism for sideburns.
That's right.
That's right. Oh, mate, check out the Supergrass on that bloke.
You know what? Teddy Sideburns would be a pretty cool nickname. Hey, where's Teddy Sideburns? I don't know. He's out there somewhere.
He's out there taking care of business.
Out there smoking a bunch of Supergrass.
That's right.
Theo.
Teddy Sideburns. Oh, you lot, what are you doing over there? Getting into some sideburns.
I like that this can devolve when we're discussing the band that I like.
De-evolution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Going back to mine?
Oh, full circle.
Oh yeah. Hey, look at that.
Ah.
Not even on purpose.
Nope.
No.
Speaking of not on purpose, this was an extra long episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew it would be. Anytime you get all five of us together.
Yeah.
Yakking.
We're going to chat. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. You guys got anything you want to end on here? Maybe make one last case for why people should go back and give these bands a chance. One sentence.
Because we said so.
Ooh.
Mike said the Vapors were killer.
He also said Devo was killer.
He was lying. He sent it to me in text, so it matters.
Killer Jace.
A killer Jace. Sorry. They're killer, and Devo's killer in a different way.
Devo is killer.
In a better way.
I've always liked Devo.
Damn right you.
Not enough to listen to the albums, but I've always liked.
Wow.
Final words, Patrick.
I think we all had good choices. I like the range of choices. As far as Fountains of Wayne additional listing, listen to The Night I Can't Remember with The Girl I Can't Forget. Best song ever that no one's ever heard.
Is that the title?
Song? Jesus
The Night
Christ.
I Can't Remember with The Girl I Can't Forget.
Oof. I will not even remember that song title. The song I won't remember because the title is too long.
That's why you have to listen to it right away.
The end.
All right.
Closing time.
Thanks, guys.
It's the end of the podcast, so Mike, turn off the Zoom.
Hey, do you miss getting new content from 5 Year Mission? You should head over to patreon.com/5yearmission and check out our Patreon page. As a patron of the band, you will receive access to rare and behind-the-scenes pictures and videos and other cool stuff. You will also have early access to many things, like video releases or new songs. You can sign up for different levels, from Ensign all the way up to Admiral. One of the perks of being an Admiral on 5 Year Mission's Patreon is that you get to be a producer on this podcast. Currently, our producers are Neil Carpenter, Helen Lake, Debbie Rinke, Carol Jones, Becky and Roxy, Steve and Frankie Palopoli, Madison Rachel Jones, and Jim Morehouse. Your name could be on this list if you sign up as an Admiral. So head over to patreon.com/5yearmission now. That's the number 5 Year Mission.
You know Fansets.com is your home for all things pop culture pin related by now. Back in stock, they got the Picard, Voyager, and TNG Deltas, both magnetic and pinback, as well as new releases from DC Comics, and they also just released the Mirror Universe from Discovery Deltas, both magnetic and pinbacks. And remember, every single time you spend $30 or more, you will get free shipping. You also want some more free things? How about a discount? How about 10% off your entire order when you enter the discount code TrekGeeks? That is all caps, no spaces, TrekGeeks, TREKGEE. No, it's just 2 E's. KSTREKGEEKS. TrekGeeks. Put that in. Get 10% off your entire order. Man, I just rambled a whole bunch on that one and screwed up the spelling, but I'm keeping it anyway. Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank Fansets for sponsoring each and every episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast. If any of you are interested in listening to more of our music, you can check us out on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or pretty much anywhere that you can listen to music. Just search for 5-Year Mission and we should be the first thing that comes up. If you would like to contact us in regards to the podcast or anything else that you want to talk to us about, you can email us at 5yearmissionband@gmail.com.
And for more information about the band, you can go to 5yearmission.net and also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
5-Year Mission, the podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.